How to use the slab roller. This is a slab roller. The slab roller is used to make sheets of clay, and it's a lot easier to use the slab roller than it is to roll things out by hand. So kind of cool to have. There's a couple things to keep in mind with the slab roller. There are 2 sets of canvases. Here's one. One of them is for dark clay and one of them is for light clay. On the inside of the dark clay one, you can see that it's stained from the darker clays. So it's important to just use which one based on what clay that you have so that your clay doesn't get contaminated and so that you don't contaminate other people's clay. We've got a couple parts to the slab roller. We've got this wheel. We've got this roller part. We have the canvas, and then we have these knobs. The first thing that I do is adjust these knobs to the thickness I want my slab to be. Over here and over here, there are little guides for how thick your clay will be. You have to turn them both, so turn one and then turn the other, or else your clay will be slanted, it won't be flat. To adjust this, you're just going to spin this, and then that will be thinner up towards the top, and then this will be thicker. Typically, I'll make slabs between 1/4 and 1/8 of an inch, but depending on your project, you might want them thicker, you might want them thinner, so, try out what you like best. Once you've picked your thickness, you're going to grab the correct color canvas sheets and open them up like this. Then you'll grab the clay that you want to make into a slab. This is just kind of a random ball of clay. You'll obviously want to wedge it prior to putting it in the slab roller. Before you put it in the slab roller, it's important to flatten it out a little bit. I like to just kind of come in with my hands and make it a little bit flatter. Depending how big of a piece we're using, I also like to come in and taper down the edge so that it feeds more easily into the rollers. Once I have this going on, I am going to put this up towards the roller and I'm going to cover it up with the canvas. Now I am going to grab this as I spin this wheel. So I'm going to hold on to this. I'm going to take the handle and just start spinning this. You want to make sure that the canvas is smoothed flat over your piece before it goes through the slab roller, or it can put some really deep creases into your clay and then you have to re-roll it and it's really annoying. So then we take the canvas off and we've got a nice slab going on. After our clay has gone through the slab roller, it's going to have a canvas texture on it because it was between the sheets of canvas. Before you make anything, you're going to want to get rid of this canvas texture. It's not mandatory, it won't ruin your project, but it is a sign of quality and that you know what you're doing to get this out. To get out the texture, we're going to use a metal rib, and I'm going to use the curved side and just gently brush over the texture. And I'm going to do this on both sides. I'm not pressing hard enough that it's really scraping anything off, but now we've got a nice smooth slab to work with. So while we're here, I'll also just talk a little bit more about slabs. If you know about slabs, you don't have to watch this, but if you want some tips about slabs, keep watching. In terms of making projects out of slabs, a lot of people ask, why would you make something out of slabs versus coil building? Typically, people will use slabs if it's a more structured, more geometric kind of situation that you're going for. So if you wanted to make a cube, it's going to be a lot easier to cut slabs and build it that way than to coil build a cube, which you still could do. It's just going to have a more organic shape if you coil build it. Things that you build with slabs are going to be more structural. On the other hand, if you want to make something that is really rounded, like a vase, or has kind of a lot of curves or a more organic look, that's probably a better project to use coils for. When you are building with slabs, you can just freehand cut them. I really like to take paper and make myself stencils of each of the pieces that I am going to cut out of my slabs. Then you can just lay it flat on top of the slabs and cut around it, and you know exactly how big to make them. There are multiple ways you can cut your slabs out. I will typically use a fettling knife for straight cuts, and I'll use a needle tool for more curvy cuts, just so you can kind of have more dexterity with that. If you are building something more structured, I often will recommend taking your slab and letting it dry for a while. I typically won't let my slabs dry like overnight or more than while I'm at the studio. I typically find that they'll get too dry if I do that. Some people do that, I personally don't, so you can kind of play around with that. I will often just hit them with a hair dryer for like a minute or two so that they're a little bit more firm, so that they're not going to kind of like slump down while you're trying to work with them. So this I haven't hit with a hair dryer or anything, it's just fresh out of the slab roller. So as you can see, it's really bendy. It's not going to hold its shape at all. When I hair dry something, the way that I want it to be before I start putting pieces together is that I want it to, it's kind of hard to show you, but I essentially want it to lift up as if it were stiff, more like a piece of wood or something, instead of having this floppy bend to it. There's a lot more to know about working with slabs. Obviously, that was like 3 tips, but I think those are some pretty good tips and tricks to get you started if you've never done anything with slabs, or if you know, haven't done some slabs in a long time. Yeah, that's the slab roller.